Welcome to another edition of the Around the NFL broadcast. My name is Dan Hansis. I come to you from a virtual room filled with, some heroes. Greg Rosenthal, Mark Sessler. Boys, it's almost here. The draft is a week away, and we got a lot of talk in that realm coming up. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, though, including MVP odds with Matt Money Smith. That feels like a good guy to talk odds with. And also, listen, here's a big one, boys. Bro hugs are back. Bro hugs are back.
I was kind of enjoying not having to hug people. That's like one thing I'll miss with the pandemic.
I mean, I've known Greg for like 8-9 years, and he has never even attempted a bro hug with myself.
That's true.
Well, I'm not expecting a bro hug from Greg anytime soon. And you're right, Greg. There is, in this strange time in world history, 2021, things that went away in 2020, you have an option now to make them go away forever. And so this was the opening for ROG, for the bro hugs to go, the daps, if you will. But I don't see it going away. I think it's part of the whole draft culture and the idea of like this being a family. Football is family. So Greg, come on, just embrace it. Come on, you're not a sentimental guy, but come on.
I embrace him doing it. We share a birthday, me and the commissioner, and he's like, I've seen him in person. He's a big guy. Like, that's a huggable guy. No one's getting anything great out of hugging me. It's all skin and bones. It's no fun.
So many issues, Dan. I don't even know where to go with Greg on this front.
All right, let's before we roll into everything, let's hit a little news and Ian Rappaport tweet here. Oh my gosh, trope alert. It seems like a yearly ritual, but once again, the Raiders did extensive work on all the top QBs. If one slides past number 10, they could be a team to watch to grab a QB and stash for the future. Doubtful that a QB gets to 17, but they will have their homework ready. Mark, what is it about John Gruden with Derek Carr? Do you think it's just he's waiting for the opportunity to replace this quarterback, and it just never seems to present itself, and where he's in the draft makes me think that might be what it is again?
I mean, it is every year, and I think that John Gruden has a wandering eye for quarterbacks. He always has, and Derek Carr has been, better than advertised. I feel like I've been overly critical of Derek Carr for years, and last year, really solid, but you can always upgrade. It's just that other teams are probably thinking, unless you have one of those top 5 guys, you are always looking. But for some reason, we always hear about the Raiders looking. Like, I would imagine the Patriots are thinking about wanting to trade up, but we're not getting, like, mega whispers out of Foxborough. But you always hear about what the Raiders are up to, and it's probably just, like, constantly so annoying to Derek Carr, who every offseason has to deal with the narrative of, like, yeah, they like me, but I don't think they love me.
Carr is coming off his best season, I think, as a Raider. Maybe the Raiders, I wouldn't put this past John Gruden to put it out there to motivate Derek Carr. Not that he should need motivating, but think about last offseason. The owner was literally talking publicly about wanting Tom Brady. That there was a time period where the Raiders seemed like they wanted in on that, and they kind of left Carr out to dry, and then they end up with him. He has a great season, so you never know. It is funny, though. I don't think Gruden will ever get past this. Like, Derek Carr could win an MVP, and we'll still be reporting this from Rap Sheet in 2022.
I'm totally with you on that. And what kind of drives me crazy, and I imagine drives a portion of the Raiders fan base crazy, is that when you look at the Raiders and why they seem to be stuck in neutral right now, I don't look at the quarterback as the reason why. I think the defense that has seriously underperformed, and those big draft picks that didn't check out, and some other underperformance on the offensive side of the ball that's not Derek Carr is more the reason. So it's almost like sometimes you wonder if the quarterback is a scapegoat for Gruden not running the true version of the team that he wants. The offense has been good, though, with Carr at the controls.
Maybe it's because of the 10-year contract. They just feel like they have so much time. Is Derek Carr really going to be there throughout that whole time? I have my doubts on that. It got me thinking, though, like what other teams would be a surprise to trade up. And Philadelphia is one I've got just kind of keeping an eye on. I know they traded back, and they say, there'll be a competition. Well, right now that competition would be Jalen Hurts and Joe Flacco. Could they throw another first-round pick, or at least the second-round pick in the mix with Hurts? I think so. They want to be a QB factory, add another quarterback to the assembly line.
Here's one for you. How about potentially? I know this would be a long
wait.
shot.
I just stopped down before we move on there. First, let's calm down with this QB factory thing. How about how about we just try to invest in what we have in our building? Nick Sirianni, and I've said this on the podcast, boys, it feels like he's set up not necessarily to fail, but he's kind of his back is against the wall with the fan base. Is a lot of unrest. The organization's in some flux. If you now throw in some type of high round, first round, even a second round draft pick into the mix at quarterback with the existing personnel, that's so messy, man. That's messy.
And also a factory, you can be a factory and you can produce things. That doesn't mean it's things that we need. I mean, a lot of the quarterbacks coming out of Philadelphia, they're traded, or they're Joe Flacco, who I don't need to watch again. So please, I was going to mention this. I wonder if the Saints would ever aggressively trade up and get over all this Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston nonsense. One of them could be there this year, both of them obviously with all the money tied into them. But we have even heard from various people on our show that the Saints might be a team that could be eyeing that. They've wanted to do it in the past with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, why not?
Wait a second. Did you just say, and I know this has got Greg all fired up internally right now, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston nonsense? So you are totally out on the QB room in New Orleans right now, Mark.
I'm not totally out. It's just that
you called it nonsense.
Like it's a patch. It's a patch. I mean, again, like if there are these great quarterbacks coming out in the draft and you're Sean Payton, I'd swing for the fences. It buys you another, long tenure with the team you're in, and that may be what someone like the Patriots, the other teams are thinking that too. That's why I wonder if like a number of clubs are looking to trade up. I would not put it out of the realm of possibility for the Saints to do something aggressive just based on their past behavior.
It's a patch that had 5,000 yards the last time Jameis Winston was a starting quarterback. Yeah, connect that patch right to my neck. I love it.
I know, but you ignore the faults, Greg. You see the positive
stats. It was 5,000.
Remind you.
Yes, it was 5,000 yards, and now we're using yards as a metric that we like. That seems to be going up and down. 30 interceptions, including, let me check my notes, 14 pick sixes his last year as a starter, I believe it was. I think that was the number. All right. Speaking of the draft, all right, what are some picks that we don't want to see happen? Now, everyone has their wish list for their teams, but what's a move, and we'll start with you, Mark, that if this team makes this move, you're kind of slapping your forehead?
Well, this is the longtime Browns fan in me, but would not like to see Kyle Pitts be chosen by the Cincinnati Bengals at number 5. And I don't think that's going to happen necessarily. I don't even know if he'll get to them. But if that were to happen, you'd suddenly add him to an offense that has Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I mean, suddenly this starts to look like a raging fireball coming from the sky about to land on the other 3 teams in the AFC North. Stay away, please, Kyle Pitts.
It's funny. I misunderstood the conceit of this segment because I thought it was things I don't want the team to do because I don't think it's in their best interest. But you're saying you fear the Bengals if they go and get Kyle Pitts.
I'm worried about my best interest. I mean, the Bengals' best interest hasn't been working out for them for a long time. Let's focus on me.
How about you, Greg?
I'm going to go with Caleb Fairley being drafted by the Patriots. Now, this is nothing personal against, Mr. Fairley here. It's just such a Patriots pick. It's like, oh, we need a quarterback. Oh, we need a wide receiver. All the fans are getting excited about loading up this offense. Oh, but Bill Belichick notices there's a big physical cornerback that used to play quarterback. And, oh, wait, he's coming off multiple back surgeries, and he's either going to be like an all-pro or he might only play 2 years in his entire career. That is a New England Patriots early pick if I ever saw one. So everyone's getting all fired up about, adding some sexiness to this offense, and I could just see this totally happening.
Now, as a Pats homer, Greg, I see where all this is coming from. There have been, and we've worked together now for years and years, and I'm thinking of the Lamar Jackson draft for one, where the Patriots have these opportunities to get a young, dynamic quarterback that could be the future, and then you come out of it with a very Patriots pick. Farley is that guy for you.
He is, and it could have been someone else. I could have gone Xavier Collins. It's like, oh, there's a 270-pound linebacker that's available, an off-ball linebacker. Like, that's the type of Patriots move I see happening, something no one saw coming, something no one's really going to enjoy.
I love
that's
that.
How Bill Belichick speaks to himself in your world. Right? He's a little more decisive, but
as a Jets fan, the doubt creeping into Patriot way. I love that. I'll throw one more out there. The Falcons. Everyone's talking about where the Falcons are good, what they're going to do at number 4, and there's some talk about, let's say, Trey Lance or whomever, and it's the successor to Matt Ryan. You know what? Use that number 4 pick and sell it, and gain multiple assets off it, because this is a team that needs a lot of work. And I think Matt Ryan, he's entering his age 36 season. Maybe he's not the MVP anymore, but he is still a very good quarterback with a very good offensive head coach and very good skill players on the outside and inside. So take that, run with that, and build up the roster. Trade out. Be the team that's smart and stocks up and takes advantage of these QB desperate squads. That's what I want them to do. Or don't do.
I like it. Looking out for the Falcons fans.
There you go. All right, we're just getting going here on the broadcast. Up next, our deep dive, division by division. We've been doing it every week. Now it's the AFC East turn. We start with the defending champion Bills and my New York Jets. Coming up next on the broadcast.
Question, did you miss me? Man, Aaron Donald, he don't talk. You try to talk to him? No, I try to, say what's up. No.
Go, 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 go! Nasty, baby. Let's get nasty. Let's get nasty.
You know what they look like? You know what it feels like? Let's go. One play at a time.
Quarterback sneak. Baker Mayfield coughs the ball up on 4th down. The Jets are going to win the game.
Fires left side. Go to the end zone. Stephon Diggs makes a catch. Touchdown, Buffalo.
Why they pay me the big bucks?
I need a pick.
What's up?
I need a
Yes,
pick.
you do. Fitzpatrick runs it in for the 2-point conversion.
Good job, you old fart.
Let's go!
Yes, sir. You already know
one
it.
play.
You already
Go
know
make
it.
one more play.
You already know it.
That was the most excited I've been all year. All year.
Let's go!
Welcome back. Did anyone else know that Cam Newton has the Jay-Z laugh? Like, you crazy for this one, Rick? Aha! He has it. All right, let's get into it. AFC East. Let's start with the Bills. And this, I'll tee up the Bills like this, Mark. You have a team here that, to me, is the AFC version, a less extreme version of what the Bucs did this offseason, which is they like their team. So they're not going to make a lot of huge splashy moves. I know they swapped out John Brown for Manny Sanders, but overall, it was a lot about keeping their own talent. And the reason why is, instead of making a big splash this time of year, they feel like they built something potentially special, and now they're going to reap the rewards. Do you buy into that as a theory for this organization?
I do. The one thing I really love about Buffalo is the fact that their staff essentially is entirely intact. it's a coup d'etat to keep Brian Daboll around for another year with Josh Allen. I mean, that is a frenetic, intriguing offense that grows more bizarre with each season. They're very versatile. And Leslie Frazier, who doesn't get talked about enough. You know, how about that playoff win over the Baltimore Ravens, 17-3, completely stymied Baltimore. That's on Leslie Frazier, who I thought did a great job down the stretch. They do need more help against the run on defense. I think you're going to see that in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe even move up in the draft if they really loved a playmaker on offense. And one name that sits out there for them to potentially add if they wanted to make a late season move or a late offseason move, Zach Ertz is sitting out there at tight end. Maybe throw him into the mix along with the rest of their weapons. So I think more moves could be made, but can they get better? Yes, they can, because it's another year in the same system on both sides of the ball.
You know Mark's feeling comfortable when he throws out coup d'etat. I mean, it's at least once every other show. Do you know the difference between a coup d'etat and a coup de grace?
Well, I know what a coup d'etat is.
And a coup.
The second one, inform me. Yes,
I don't know.
Is
I don't know either,
but
you throw out these big words. I don't know what they mean sometimes.
All right, come on. Get back on track.
I'm a little worried about this Bills team in terms of drafting defensive difference makers. It is really hard for me to come up with like a flaw on this Buffalo team. But if you look at the last two drafts, they've been okay. If you look at their last two first-round picks on defense, Ed Oliver, I would say a pretty big disappointment a year ago. Tremaine Edmonds gets a lot of love from the media. You watch those 3 games in the playoffs last year, he was targeted. I would say all 3 teams went after him, and they went after him successfully. So you need the guys that you've taken in the first round to get better. And I think that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott are going to be looking at this draft and thinking defense, defense, defense. I think they want to get some core players that can really make differences on Sunday. It's a solid defense. It's not a great defense right now.
And yet I still think, even if those drafts haven't been as fruitful as maybe people consider them to be, I think they're head and shoulders the best team in this division. I feel more comfortable calling them a favorite than just about anybody else when you look at the divisions. Now you look at the team that finished in last place, the New York Jets, who coming off of 2-14. Robert Sala's in the building there, number 2 overall pick. We all know what's going on there. Zach Wilson's going to be the new quarterback of the future with Sam Darnold traded. And when I think about this team, Greg, I think about how all the melodrama around quarterback, as it always is with the Jets, just sucks all the air out of the room. But there's more to this team that needs to be done. There's major roster upgrades necessary, and that's why I think this draft and really the next 12 months are some of the most important stretch of time in Jets history, because a year from now we're either going to be looking at the Jets as an ascendant team like the Bills a couple of years ago, or a team that's perpetually stuck in the mud, and you're again asking questions about leadership if they botch this draft. This is so important what happens next week.
I'm with you. I mean, this was a 2-win team. I know we want to blame it all on Adam Gase, but outside of their skill positions, assuming they take Zach Wilson, for the most part, are good. And you got some good defensive linemen. They need everything. I mean, they need cornerbacks. They need offensive linemen. I'm curious if they're going to be the first team to take a running back off the board. It surprised me a little bit at number 23, but the Jets do have a lot of picks. Like, they need a starting running back, and I could see them being kind of the team that, let's say they end up with Najee Harris or one of these top running backs, Javonte Williams, like that's going to be the fantasy rookie running back spot to be. Because if you're in New York, I think you're going to get a lot of carries as a rookie runner.
Well, I think you're right, because you've got Mike LaFleur, Mike the Flower, brother of Matt the Flower, Matt LaFleur. And what do we like? It was Robert Saleh that said yesterday, this is the best offense, Kyle Shanahan's scheme. This is essentially Niners East, because you now have their former defensive coordinator. So, you know, does it all have to happen this season? No, I don't think the pressure is there for that. And if they hit on Zach Wilson, and I really think they will, I think he's going to be special, everything starts to change, because that's been the burning void in New York since Dan was basically. So, you know, you change that, and Dan's life changes.
Well, but you know what? And I still feel Sam Darnold, as an example, could be a very good quarterback, but he never got the chance. And a big reason why was they never built skilled players around him. They never fixed the offensive line. So with that second first-round pick, that's where I want them to focus. Either trade up and get another playmaker, or take an offensive lineman that you love and just start to be smart about helping a young quarterback, because you can't just throw him out there and expect him to be special and Mahomesian, even if people do call Zach Wilson the Mormon Mahomes, which is, kind of frisky. We into that nickname?
Oh, Dan's getting excited. He's getting fired up about his boy band quarterback.
The nickname does not do a lot
handsome
for me.
young man. What's that? Mormon Mahomes?
I mean, it's a fine nickname. It's not like it's fine. Well, I'll leave it right there. I mean, he's eating Chipotle burritos. He's got the nickname. Just the on-field stuff will need to come next. I'm sure it will.
Well, you've already said he's special, so I'm looking forward to it. All right, we have Scott Pioli, by the way, coming up a little later to break down the rest of the AFC East. But next, we welcome in a great friend of the show. He's the voice of God for the Around the NFL podcast, Matt Money Smith, and he's going to join us to break down the 2021 MVP odds up next on the broadcast. The Mormon Mahomes, embrace it. Look at it. The city of Cleveland, Mark Sessler's adopted hometown, home to the 2021 NFL Draft. You can watch all 7 rounds right here on NFL Network starting Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you're new to us here on NFL Network, Around the NFL is also a podcast. Scan that QR code. Bang it right there with your cell phone camera, and you can download our latest episode. Here's part of our conversation with Matt Money Smith about the NFL's partnerships in legal sports betting and 2021 NFL MVP odds. Hit it. Speaking of DraftKings, they released their NFL MVP odds. So before we go today, why don't we just kick around some interesting players on this list. It may not be a surprise to you, but Patrick Mahomes is the favorite here with Aaron Rodgers right behind him and Josh Allen rounding out the top 3, but a bit of a distant third. Money, when you looked at this list, was there a player, and it goes about 25, 30 deep, that jumped out to you as someone that makes sense as a potential sneaky MVP candidate?
Well, there were a couple things I think that jumped out at me. One is, and I think we saw this with Aaron Rodgers this past year, right? I think there's always a sentimental favorite. Somebody that you'd like to, man, Aaron Rodgers needs another MVP on his resume. He's arguably the best, quarterback, thrower, whatever you want to tag him with, of his era. So he was able to put the numbers together, and they were able to win enough games to bring that to fruition. So to me, I think it's clear, at least I think, I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, but someone who had to serve his time in Detroit for all those years, I would assume Matthew Stafford's got to be the sentimental favorite, combined with, everybody likes Sean McVay. He's great with the media. His offense is fun. You could even maybe point to him as someone that kind of open things up. Even though it's Kyle Shanahan's tree that, that he is the fruit that fell off of, he's a big reason why so many of these offenses look the way they do. So to me, that's kind of your sentimental favorite. Can he put up the numbers? Can he play at a level? Can the Rams win enough games? I think it's tough to see Mahomes or Brady. I mean, Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers winning one again so soon when Tom Brady put up an MVP campaign last year. I mean, you could make as compelling a case for him as you could for Aaron Rodgers. So I think all things being equal, if they're all putting up similar numbers, you look at what's become of the NFC South with the retirement of Drew Brees and, kind of the situation with Carolina and Atlanta. It looks like they're going to probably win a lot more games. Everybody's back. So those two, I think, kind of stand ahead of others. And then for me, I think the long shot is kind of what we did with Kyler Murray last year, and that's Justin Herbert, right? A guy who played behind the worst offensive line in the league last year and still put up 4,400 yards, 31 touchdowns in 15 games, and was without Austin Eckler for 8 or 9 of those games. So I think that's kind of maybe the categories that I see.
The crazy thing was they're close together. Stafford was 5th plus 1,500, Brady was 6th plus 1,600, and Herbert's in the top 10 plus 1,800. Yeah. So they're kind of in the same ballpark. Herbert getting some love there.
I'm a little stunned that Stafford's that high. Ahead of Brady, just barely, ahead of Lamar Jackson, ahead of Dak Prescott. But there's a narrative built into this. Kyler Murray, to me, he's kind of middle of the pack here, plus 1,800. He jumps out to me as a guy to get behind because he can give you that 1,000-yard season, and he could put a team on his back, and then at the end of the year, 4,000 yards passing, 44 total touchdowns, a big rushing year for a playoff team, and that makes sense to me. He would be, if I had to pick one guy from kind of the middle of the pack, at plus 1,800, Kyler Murray's my guy.
See, I am totally with money on Justin Herbert. He jumped out to me. I don't think this team is going to be anything but enjoyable to watch. We've already talked about my Brandon Staley fascination. So, I marry all this together. I think they're going to be a different club. I am offended that Derrick Henry at plus 3,300 is below Carson Wentz. I understand that Derrick Henry's not going to run for 2,000 yards again, but the idea that Carson Wentz just feels to me shotgun from a couple years ago in this exercise.
Hang on. You more than anyone else on this podcast have spoke about what annoys you about the MVP race and how it's narrative driven and all that. Like, quarterbacks are kind of where it's at. That's why a quarterback almost always wins. So I'm not talking about from what I think about Carson Wentz, the player, against Derrick Henry, who's a Hall of Fame level running back. But when you're building out odds for the MVP, I think it's close that Wentz, if he had a bounce back season with Frank Reich on a great Colts team potentially, I think that actually makes sense in terms of odds.
I hear what you're saying, but I just don't believe it. Like, I just don't like Carson Wentz slotted where he is.
Right, well, that's what you're ultimately picking on. So I'm with Mark that, like, Carson Wentz is one of the worst quarterbacks in the entire NFL last year. There's little reason to think that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback.
At plus 3,000, though.
That's Greg, like 13. That's terrible odds.
No,
that's terrible.
To people what plus 3,000 means.
It means, if you put 100 down, you would get 3,000. But that is the 13th most likely player, though, which seems insane to me for a guy who it wouldn't surprise me if he's not a starter anymore in a year or two.
Well,
I love one guy above the pack here, in the middle of the pack. I think Mahomes is easily the best way to go here. He's still plus 500. To me, I give him about a 1 in 2 or 3 chance every season until I'm proven otherwise, because he's just that good. So he would be my number one. But Dak Prescott, down around 8th or 9th at plus 1,700. You talked about narrative driven. I think him coming off his injury, coming off obviously tough, year personally, and just getting that contract. If he plays lights out, and I just think he's that good that he could do it.
And it's the Cowboys.
And it's the Cowboys. Him in the middle of the pack is the guy that I would go before.
All right, coming up next, we swing back to the AFC East to check in on the Pats and Dolphins with Scott Pioli, one of the great personnel men of the 21st century. He played a role with those Patriots. Up next on the broadcast.
Patriots entered the chat today. Several moves, money moves, if you will.
A massive day for the New England Patriots.
You saw the money they had in the cap. They wanted to spend that money, and they went out to get quality guys that fit what they do in New England.
Like this changes things. Jonnu Smith heading to New England.
For the middle, into the end zone, caught, touchdown, and it's Jonnu Smith.
They got after a pass rusher. They got Matthew Judon.
In trouble, down he goes. It's a safety, Matthew Judon.
Nelson Aguilar is going to the New England Patriots.
For Aguilar, makes the adjustment, touchdown Raiders.
They got a really well-rounded group of pass catchers.
Pass caught, touchdown, Hunter Henry.
I don't think they're done. I think they're still going to add some more pieces, and we'll see where it goes.
Welcome back to the broadcast. Okay, we complete our spin through the AFC East right now with a man who knows the division very well. A 5-time NFL Executive of the Year. Spent a long time with the Patriots, among other teams. He is Scott Pioli, now, of course, of NFL Network. Welcome to the broadcast, Scott.
Good morning, and thank you very much. Great to be here.
It is so awesome to have Scott here. Yeah, and Scott spent many years with the Patriots. Now, here's the thing, and this is where we'll start. So let's start with New England because they're always a fascination. Scott has not been in that building since, 2008, Scott? So you don't know the inner workings necessarily the way you once did. However, I am curious, Mr. Pioli, as someone that's watching this from the outside as an analyst, did it surprise you, this off-season spending spree? Did you find it out of character for the organization, or did it make sense, you knowing the inner workings of Bill and what goes through that mind and all the people still there that you worked with?
I'll say this, in some ways it surprised me, in other ways it didn't, because they saw opportunity. As everyone else in the league was looking at this situation and the salary cap being lower and everyone being in cap trouble, the Patriots, oddly, were one of the few teams that had some cap space. So what they chose to do is see the opportunity in it, where there was going to be less teams to compete with against to acquire free agent players. So again, the Patriots saw this opportunity. They pounced on it. The other reality is that they needed help to fix their team and to get better and to get more talent. And I think, knowing Bill, knowing Robert, knowing Jonathan, knowing that entire organization, here's what I do know. It has been a long time since I've been there, but what I do know is that's a leadership group that's willing and ready to do anything that they need to do to improve their football team. You go back to 2000 and 2001 when I was there, we needed to infuse that entire organization with more talent. People forget, we signed 23 free agent players that year. Some were unrestricted, some were street, but we only spent $2.5 million of total signing bonus for those players. But the bottom line was we needed players. That was the vehicle that we could acquire players and ramp up the talent of the football team quickly. So we did it. So to me, again, there's reasons that I understand it. There's reasons that it surprised me. But the bottom line is they had the cap space. Robert Kraft absolutely had the cash, and Robert's never afraid to spend cash if Bill needs it.
Yeah, and they probably wouldn't want to admit it, but I think that roster coming into this offseason was in similar shape to the one that you guys took over in 2000. In theory, all this free agent, signings sets them up in the draft where they can go in any direction. But I have a theory. You see the biggest needs at the bottom of our board earlier in this segment, and it says quarterback, wide receiver, and the fans are all excited about that. But to me, I look at the lack of defensive cornerstones, young players on this roster, and where the Patriots are drafting. And I think Patriots fans might get disappointed in that they might really look at this draft as a way to build up that defense. Looking at this team, do you agree? Do you think they need a lot more help on the defensive side?
I think they need some help. I don't want to go as far to say that they need a lot more help, but I agree with you. They do need help. But the other thing that Bill has always been terrific at doing is once he sees the talent he has, he knows where the greatest strengths are and where the greatest limitations are. Bill does a terrific job, particularly on defense, in terms of accentuating the positive and limiting the limitations. There's no way that they can fill all of their needs in 1 year. No team can. And believe it or not, every team has needs. So Bill will do a good job of getting the players in the positions that they need, getting some of the players back that from this past year that opted out is going to help the team a little bit. Some of these younger players that they have being in the system another year is also going to help them. So to me, yes, they have some needs. They'll do some things on defense without a doubt. And they'll be a better defense this year because Bill, again, will figure out where he can do the best with what he has.
You know, I'd like to look at Miami for a second and Chris Greer and what he's done down there. And they've been as aggressive as any team out there in terms of accruing draft picks. And, you know, for me, I love this strategy. And it feels a little atypical to where we were in the league 10 years ago, per se. But, you know, you also look at the roster. They gave away Minkah Fitzpatrick, Laramie Tunsil. And if you look at two of their biggest needs, it would be offensive line. It would be safety. So in your view, when you do this, where you move big players for big picks, at that point, do you feel like it can become counterproductive, or do you love their strategy? How would you grade Chris Greer and the Dolphins right now?
I give Chris, I'm not big on grades, but I think Chris is doing a terrific job, whatever that means, whatever that equates to. And I love what they're doing. And that may be because I believe in a similar philosophy of spending in order to get more currency. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but what they've done is, take, for instance, Laramie Tunsil. A good player, not a great player, a good and at times very good player. I understand that he made Pro Bowls, but if you watch him on tape, he's a good player. If you look at his penalties, that kind of contradicts some of what you see and some of the sizzle you hear. The other thing is Laramie Tunsil is not right for the Brian Flores system and or culture. And that's not saying anything bad about Laramie Tunsil. I want to be clear about that. They just weren't going to fit. So Chris Greer, and this is why I give Chris a ton of credit, that was a #1 pick, a first-round pick for Chris Greer. He understood the change in philosophy, the change in the culture, what Brian Flores was going to need in order to be successful from a cultural standpoint, and it just wasn't going to work. So everyone did things above board, and they moved on from Laramie, collected enormous currency that helped them not only at that moment, but now it's still paying dividends because they keep moving up. So to me, I love the idea of having a lot of currency and understanding that just because you have first-round picks doesn't mean that you're going to nail it, but it at least gives you opportunity in order to have a chance to not only get good players, but get them at a controlled salary.
Last question on Miami, Scott. Do you think that this team is going to be all in on Tua in the way that they need to be and stay patient in the development process? And do you see anything they'll do in this draft as an indication toward that? I know a lot of speculation that they're going to get another wide receiver. It makes sense to me that when you have these young quarterbacks on their first deal, you go all in and you build around them as much as possible. Do you feel like those are truly invested in this kid?
Here's what I'll say. So I hired Brian Flores as an intern in 2004, and he's just like we were, and he's not leaking anything out. So even as close as I am with him, he's not letting me know. But my instincts tell me, based on what I'm seeing and hearing and the way that he's acting and reacting, is that they are all in Tua. The other thing I get is not only the front office and Chris Greer and the head coach, Brian Flores, I get the sense that this football team is. Tua is a guy that teammates gravitate towards. They made this decision. I think they're going to live with it, and I think they're going to continue to build the team around him. Again, I think that this is a very tough year to evaluate the quarterback this past season because you have a player that came in as a rookie. He came in late. There wasn't an offseason. So to me, we're going to see whatever the best of Tua is in the very near future.
I'm with you on that, Scott. Totally. Let's see what he can do in a normal season, fully removed from that injury and all that other stuff. Scott, awesome work as always, and check out everything Scott does on Twitter and, of course, on NFL Network. Thanks, buddy, for joining the broadcast.
Thanks, guys, very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Coming up next, we are rolling on, opening up the mailbag. Oh, that's always fun. So you got to interface with the fans. That's what it's all about. We check that mailbox up next. As we mentioned earlier, ATN is also a podcast. Scan that QR code with your cell phone camera, and you could download our latest episode on which we asked you, the loyal listener, to submit your questions for a good old-fashioned mailbag. Brendan Kennelly asks, with the draft coming up and a few teams in high spots that could potentially be open to giving away their spot, what team is most likely to A, trade away their spot, and B, who is most likely to trade up into a new higher spot? We just talked about the Steelers. I could definitely see them making a play if a quarterback starts falling. Greg, do you see another team in that realm?
I think the Falcons, instead of making like a big statement in terms of drafting their quarterback of the future fourth, like Thomas Dimitroff did with Matt Ryan, I actually could see them going the other way, where using that number 4 pick to pick up a ton of picks, kind of like the Dolphins did, still have a draft pick in the top 10 or 11 and start their rebuilding process that way. I don't know who trades up there, but in a fun world, it would be my New England Patriots.
Well, yeah, I would see New England as a team that, is going to want to move up if they have to, seek a quarterback to go somewhere else than Cam Newton. I think the Panthers, after swinging and missing, not really getting their first choice as a quarterback, and you got Sam Darnold, who I think you want to take a look at. Maybe they go from number 8 and say, if we can get value and someone really wants to get into number 8, we'll go down. I mean, I think at some point it would have gone the other way. They would have traded up. That's what they tried to do. And I don't think the Falcons are going to want to trade with the Panthers to give Carolina their franchise quarterback inside the same division.
I mean, they're also a little bit hamstrung financially at quarterback, the Panthers, because they're going to have to pay Teddy Bridgewater wherever he ends up. You're going to have to, you're hearing that they're picking up the Sam Darnold option, so you have a lot. Are you going to bring in a high-priced or a high-drafted rookie quarterback on top of all that? That just seems like a lot.
They need a left tackle, though, and they are in the perfect catbird seat to take the top left tackle, or at least number 2.
This from Paul Silva. You think 2020 rookie QBs will take a step back in 2021 now that there will be fans in the stands? Okay. Here's my thought on that. And when we talk about rookie QBs of 2020, Joe Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Jalen Hurts, those are the kind of 4 guys. I don't know. Who knows if they'll freak out. I'm sure all these guys played in front of big crowds their whole careers. So I don't think so. But at the same time, it is kind of an interesting experiment, sociological experiment, if you will. The whole 2020 season, I guess it will be different for these guys, and all of a sudden they're playing at this level in front of 70,000 screaming fans, hypothetically.
I think it is a beguiling question. I mean, I like the question because it makes me have to think about that. But if anything, I think last year would have been the step away from the norm. I mean, these guys aren't from the wilderness. They've been playing in front of big cheering crowds for a decade plus as football players. So it's not that atypical. And if anything, I think it maybe energizes certain players and certain athletes.
Well, Herbert's in a unique spot, though. Chargers fans, you got to start filling up that stadium. We haven't seen what this stadium's going to be with the Chargers, but he might feel like he's playing 16 road games. That's what the last Chargers quarterback, Phillip Rivers, felt like. So that could be an additional trouble. I'm worried about Herbert. I got a lot on Herbert right now. I just want him to be
a little too
guy. I want him to be the next guy. I'm not loving the coordinator. Now this question has me a little freaked out.
It is interesting. We kind of hit pause because of COVID on all the Chargers melodrama about, are they going to really truly find a home in the LA market, and now they have this giant stadium, and how are they going to fill it up, and is it going to become road games where Justin Herbert's calling timeout on offense because he can't get his signals in and all that? All that stuff was on the back burner when the stadiums were empty. It's all going to be back on the front burner, hopefully, in 2021. All right, this from the Broadcast Podcast. Ricky, always finding a way to plug your own brand. These all suck. I guess the questions you're referring to. What 8 teams would you choose to break away from the NFL to create their own Super League? Dash Broads for life. Now, I only have a vague level of knowledge on this, Greg, and maybe you could fill in the dots, but there was major drama over on the other side of the pond around their version of football. So why don't you set the table and then we'll figure it out.
Well, I think most sports fans probably know the story of the Super League already collapsing, where basically the richest, biggest soccer teams from all over the globe, different leagues, tried to break away and form their own league, and the fans revolted, and it didn't happen. For this question, it would be like, can't you imagine some owners doing this at some point? It's like, we got to get more money. We got to get more money. And so I'm thinking more about who has the most dough and who has the biggest brands. And so I'm starting with the Patriots, the Cowboys. You know, Jerry Jones and Kraft are leading the way.
That's 1-2.
I think you got to get the Packers in there. It just feels like, what's a football league without the Packers? I'm putting the Steelers in there.
Well, the NFL would be asking the same thing, by the way. It's like, wait, the Packers
right.
are leaving? And the Cowboys?
They're breaking apart. The NFL's not happy. The Steelers, you got to put in there with the tradition, and Mark's not going to be happy about this, but I'm putting the Ravens in there too. The Browns, forget about the Browns, but I like having a little bit of a rivalry. The Ravens-Steelers thing, bring that to the new league. They're well run. The Chiefs, you got to bring Mahomes to the new league, so they're coming. And then finally, you need another West Coast team. The Seahawks make sense to me. I like bringing their fan base into this league, and the Raiders. So really, we're just ripping the guts out of the NFL. Your move, Goodell.
Your move, Goodell. This is network. All right, coming up next, our final thoughts with Weekend Vibes. Oh, this one, I feel good about this weekend. Up next on the broadcast. We are less than a week away from the city of Cleveland rocking out for the 2021 NFL Draft. The whole thing kicks off Thursday, April 29th at 8 p.m. Eastern when the Jags are put on the clock. Watch the entire draft right here on NFL Network. All right, it's time for Weekend Vibes. I'll get it going. And let me just say that Tony Romo, good for you, buddy. You're involved on the professional golf circuit in some capacity. But good for me and Mark and Greg, we don't have to worry about it anymore because back in the old days at NFL.com, we used to cover Tony Romo golf events like it was Tiger Woods at the Masters in 2018 on Sunday. Now he can just do his thing, have fun. Good for him. Greg.
I mean, we're really going to go through the weekend vibes here without mentioning it's the old new Blue Eyes' birthday this weekend. How about a happy birthday to Dan Hanzus? You didn't think we were going to get through the whole show. What a day. What are you doing to celebrate here, Dan?
Well, I'm 41, but since I don't count the pandemic birthday, which also fell in the draft, it's 40 again. So this is my 40th birthday weekend, and I'm going to spend it with my family, and I'm going to eat pizza and go to my boys' Little League game, and it's all about family, and I can't wait. Thank you.
Well, I could have gone somewhere else with a weekend vibe, but that was my vibe too. We've worked with you, Dan, for forever. It's also my wife's birthday. You guys were born on the same day, same month, same year, which I find suspicious. I'm still investigating that.
A little bit of a kinship.
But I do think that, look, we wouldn't even have a show without you. And so it's an honor to work with you. And I know there's some other people that would like to say happy birthday to you as well, Mr. Hansis. Let's go to it.
Oh, happy birthday, Daddy.
That was actually me. Well, that was me inside your car filming that. So I hope you don't have a problem with that, but I captured the footage, and happy birthday, pal.
Thank you very much. I'm not even going to ask why you're in my wife's car. I'm just going to say you're a great friend. Both of you are. Thank you so much for watching this show, and enjoy the draft, everybody. We'll be back on the other side, and check out the Around the NFL podcast. Have a great week and enjoy your vibes, everybody.